The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending. This isn't just a podcast. This is a call to action for all entrepreneurs who are tired of seeing their businesses and communities suffer while big business continues to grow by the billions. We challenge you to apply the content of our time together to create businesses that your clients can't resist, your employees love to work for, and your communities can depend on. Now is the time for Entrepreneurs Ascending. Hello, and yes, now is the time. Oh, let me fix my camera here for those who are on video land. All right, so now is the time for Entrepreneurs Ascending. And yes, we want you to listen carefully, take some notes, put these ideas that you hear into action, because knowledge is not power. It's the application of knowledge that is power. And if you care about your business, you care about your employees, and you care about your community, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you, right? Well, actually, our guest today might be able to answer that question. Why wouldn't you? Because there are certain things that are really in our own minds that hold us back. There are certain obstacles that we might not even be aware of. Things that happened in our past to us, beliefs that we've come to just take as truth about the world and ourselves. And so today, Kimberly Lebbing, who we will have on here just a moment, she's going to share her entrepreneurial story and her journey around NLP and her journey about that mindset coaching and how she has developed a program that can do a 4-hour turnaround. She's going to talk about her entrepreneurial journey, and then we're going to get into, okay, what is it about these obstacles, these barriers, and what are some things that you can start doing immediately to start identifying and working through them. So we're going to hit the quick break, and then we'll be right back with Kimberly. Have you been suffering from chronic pain, disease, or sleep disorders? Did you know that 75 to 90% of disease is caused by inflammation in the body? The sad truth is, most doctors just treat symptoms rather than finding and fixing root causes of inflammation. If you want to fix your health problems, then finding and fixing the cause of the inflammation is a must. It's time to demand this for your health care and start living life to its fullest again. Book a discovery appointment with the Functional Health Team founder, Dr. Flora, to get your answers ASAP at www.functionalhealthteam.com. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. So great to have you on here today. And I think that, well, I think a great many things, but I think that it's going to be a fantastic show today. And so many people, I mean, I know I've been there. I'm sure you've been there too. You know, maybe you can share a little bit about your journey, what propelled you into to NLP and figuring out, okay, how do we get past those obstacles? So it's great having you here. So just to kind of like dig into some things, what is NLP? And we've had some folks on here before who have talked a little bit about it, but it's always good to kind of, reset on that. And so what is NLP real quick before we get into all that stuff?
Sure. It's actually, it sounds more complicated than it is.
Yeah.
It stands for neuro, which is the brain, linguistic, which is our language, and the programming, which we are doing all the time, every day. It's just whether it's intentional or not.
Yeah.
The programming that causes us to do the behavior that we do.
Fantastic. Okay, so it's the NeuroLinguistic Programming, and I think we're going to get all into that in the second half. But before we get there, I really wanted to dig into like how did you get here? What brought Kimberly Lebbing to this point? But can you tell the audience a little bit more about what you do and your company and how you help folks, and then we'll get into that journey?
Oh, sure. So I I focus specifically, I'm a success and mindset coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I work with business owners, entrepreneurs, companies and their teams that want to get to a higher level, but they've been stuck. And they haven't been able to figure out what it is or why they can't do the behavior that they want to do. That maybe they don't, maybe sometimes actually they know what's holding them back, but they don't know how to fix it. Or sometimes they don't know what it is, and I help them identify that. And then I have a 4-hour process that fixes it in 4 hours.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, for so many people, it's a lifelong struggle, and they don't get answers. You know, there's a lot of different paths they can take, a lot of self-help books that they can read, and maybe even therapists and talking to, and so it's amazing that you can have this impact in as little as 4 hours.
Yeah.
So what was most influential to you about getting into NLP and starting down this path?
I think, well, I'll have to share my backstory.
Okay.
So you can kind of, so I'll give you maybe the shorter version of that, but
all right. Well, it's only a 50-minute show. So.
Okay. So I grew up in a home with really, really young parents, and they were still in their teens when they had.
Okay. Yeah.
So they didn't know what they didn't know, but there was a lot of verbal abuse, a lot of dysfunction going on from both families, and they were teenagers. So if you imagine a teenager that grows up in a dysfunctional home, I mean, they're not the most positive upbringing.
Right.
And that led into, and I didn't know at the time, but I mean, it led into just broken relationships. I struggled in relationships. I've always been entrepreneurial. My parents, so I want to give them credit for the good too. They were very entrepreneurial. My dad was a farmer. He worked hard. My mom had her own businesses that she did from home. They were both very hard workers, very focused. So I had that entrepreneurial spirit in me, but I also had like all these struggles that went on internally with relationships and procrastination and kind of just the negative thinking, the programming that I had grown up with worked against me. And I struggled with it for a long time. And just like you said, I did the books, the podcasts, well, maybe not then. They weren't as prevalent then, but I listened to things. I went to seminars. I went through counseling. And it all helped, but it just didn't really get to the problem. And I got frustrated with how long it took because I feel like, it took me half a lifetime to get where I am until I discovered NeuroLinguistic Programming. And when I discovered that and found out that it could be changed really quickly, I was all in, and I was proof. I was totally proof that it worked and that the changes happened immediately.
Wow. So what was that aha moment for you with it? Like,
the aha was it kind of twofold, because I didn't want other people to have to wait to get their results. I mean, that's what it was all about for me. I was so frustrated because I knew what I was capable of doing. I knew that I had something in me that I wanted to do and bring something bigger into the world, but I couldn't do it. Like literally something was stopping me. I didn't know what it was. And I know there's other people out there that are like me, that are frustrated with their own behavior. And I'm very motivated to give them fast results, because a lot of times it doesn't, like you said, it just doesn't come fast. Yeah. And I don't think anybody should have to wait.
Right.
If something's out there, you shouldn't have to wait.
Yeah. So you knew that there was something in you, and you knew that there were some obstacles there. So how did you stumble upon then the whole idea of NLP?
This is kind of a funny story.
Okay. I like funny stories.
Well, maybe. Funny, ironic. I had been, because I mentioned I had gone to seminars and things for a number of years.
Yeah.
There was an NLP coach that I followed for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
I never knew it was NLP.
Huh. Okay.
I never knew. He never said that that's what it was. Never knew that what it was. He did it in a different way, though. He didn't teach it. So, in getting into values a little bit, I'm big on integrity. He didn't have the best integrity about it.
Oh, okay.
It caused some problems. And so, not to go too deep into detail, I didn't want to go down that road too much, but that's
Yeah.
how I fell into it.
Okay.
And then later I found a couple of institutions that they did it, they taught it, and I recognized it right away. I almost had a little bit of PTSD about it, but I did it anyway. Something in me told me to go and do it anyway. And I'm really glad I did, because now I know what to look for, as far as what I don't want to do with people and in places that I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, I know there's a little bit of hesitancy about going into it too deep, and I certainly don't want you to mention any names, but I think people have looked at like time, or they looked at these like mindset coaches and success coaches, or they've heard maybe life coaching and business coaching, and maybe they've even heard of NLP, but it sounds like a bunch of woo-woo stuff. And there's people out there who give it a bad name. Like, so what are some of those things that, like, I guess maybe if we come at it maybe a different way, what are some of those things that might send off that red alert for somebody who's looking for help in this realm, that you noticed that could help people kind of avoid that and find somebody with more integrity?
definitely.
Is that a safe way of going at
Yeah,
this?
yeah, it totally.
Okay, all right,
You're
great.
good.
Okay,
You're good.
okay.
I would say, one, if, and this did happen for me. There were things that he said in front of in the seminar, in front of the classroom, that didn't sit well with me internally. Like, that internal voice that you
Yeah,
hear, but I
yeah.
ignored it. And I later found out there were other people in the room that did the same thing. So listen to that internal voice. And just because they're, touting success and this and that, if something in you is telling you to run, you need to go the other way. That would be the number one thing, because our human intuition is really good, if we learn how to trust it. Second thing I would say is to, make sure that they're aligned with your values. If they have beliefs that don't align with you, and you're hearing that in their language that they're saying, then there's other people that do, so find the person that you're comfortable with, that aligns with your beliefs and your values, and go to that person for help. But definitely pay attention to things. So if you feel like something's not right, you need to run.
And one of the reasons I bring this up is because I see some folks who are kind of in this realm, or they're touting their coaching programs. And to me, sometimes the tactics are almost psychologically manipulative.
Yes.
Well, and just as an example of one of those ways is, well, the reason that my program's not working is because, it's not my program. It's just you're not working hard enough. Now, there's a certain amount of truth to that, but if it's presented in like a shaming way, as opposed to let's sit down and figure out why that's happening, if you're open to it,
Yeah.
and then maybe you need to talk to somebody who can help you a little bit on a deeper level, because maybe there's some stuff that you're not aware of, like, and then, hey, talk to Kimberly, right? Like, so is it something along those lines that maybe you've witnessed in the past?
Yeah, I think, it goes back to integrity for me,
Yeah.
more than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's some of them do say you're right about the shaming.
Yeah.
And when as soon as you said that, this guy he totally shamed. He totally shamed, and he did it publicly in front of everyone.
Oh man.
So it was it was just an interesting experience. But there were good things that I brought from it. So,
Tell me
not all
about
the
those.
teaching, it wasn't all bad teaching. There were definitely good things that I took from it, and some things that I've actually have put into my 4-hour process, not the manipulative things. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times we can get stuck in kind of kicking ourselves about like, oh, why did I go down that path? And how did I let this person manipulate me like that? And how did I not see it? But as you brought it up, it seems like focusing on, okay, what did I learn is huge. So what do you feel like, even though that was not the path necessarily directly, it was part of the path. So what do you feel like you learned from that experience?
the biggest, so the ways that particular person helped me, I was not aware of my language. I was not aware of my thoughts. I was told, so it was a big eye opening. I was not aware of the way that I grew up and how, and not all of it being bad either. Like my grandmother that grew up in the Depression, and her language around money and saving and and how those things impacted me. So and how I talk to my kids. So those are the things that I took away that were really eye-opening and helpful. So his teaching on language and positive words and those kinds of things were really eye-opening, and helped me a lot. And I've been able to apply it everywhere. I still apply it today, with everything I do, and those are the things that I kept with me.
Yeah.
To teach others.
So are you were not only maybe aware of your own language, but maybe you were also aware of language not to use that
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
that
definitely.
he
Definitely
displayed,
language
I
not
guess.
to
Yeah.
use. But there was so much, at the time my kids were littler. So a lot of it was applying because I didn't want them to end up in the same place that I had the same struggles, but the way my language was at that time, they were very well could have been. So it was a huge shift for me.
Can you give me an example of like a language shift? Because I don't know if everybody really understands the impact of that. Can you think of like an example of that language shift that was maybe impactful for you or for your kids?
Well, I mean, so with my kids, say somebody wanted a new bike, and they picked out, the big, beautiful, top of the line, whatever.
Of course.
Back then, my language would have been, that's too expensive. We can't afford it. And so, I mean, that's a huge shift for me. So now it would be, okay, well, what could we do to get this bike? How could we work this, or maybe ask a question, is there another bike? But if this is the one, like, how could we get there? Or why do you like this bike? Like, what's so amazing about it that you want it? So that's an example. A lot of my language was very negative based also. So it was, your subconscious mind doesn't process negatives. So I focused a lot on what I didn't want, which gave me more of what I didn't want.
Right. It's amazing. Yeah. Don't think of the pink elephant. What? Oh, I immediately
exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but I wasn't aware of it, and that first NLP experience really gave me a good foundation for that part.
So if you're looking back over the years and you could have a conversation or send a message to your 16-year-old self, what would you say?
I would say, and I would continue this message through adulthood, I would say that if you need help with something, go get it. Go ask, be
Mhm.
an advocate for yourself, find out what it is that you need and seek some answers.
Mhm.
Um, because I didn't. I did eventually, but it was very slow and very cautious way.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of what I did, I just thought that that's the way it was, or that's the way I am. This is
Hmm.
how I grew up. This is the dice I've been giving, and I'm kind of stuck with it. I would say seek answers and be an advocate for yourself. Get
Mhm.
yourself the help you need.
Excellent. Okay. So what do you feel is, well, because for small business owners, especially, educating people can be a tough part of what they do. Market education, educating them about how they're different. What do you feel is like the hardest thing about like educating the people out there who might potentially need you about what NLP is and how it might help them and how your 4 hour process might be impactful for them? What's the most difficult part of that?
Um, I think for me, because it's such not everybody's heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that explaining. So not everybody knows what NLP is. One, they're almost always intrigued. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that sounds interesting. Like what? Like that sounds kind of cool. But then their brain immediately goes to this is like counseling,
Mm.
or
Mm-hmm.
and it's not anything like counseling. There are some counselors that use it. I know a couple,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
it's not the same thing. It's not. There's no storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
If there is any storytelling, it's for the sole purpose of finding out how you think,
Mm-hmm.
not what you think, because we all have a strategy. So that's probably the biggest thing, is just explaining what it is and helping people understand that it's not the same thing as therapy or counseling. And a lot of the people I work with have been through therapy and counseling a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
and they thought they resolved the problem that's actually the cause
Mm.
of the behavior that they're trying to change.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. They worked through it and they're okay with it, whatever that was, but the program is still running.
Mm-hmm.
So the behavior, the strategy that they have because of that event is still playing, and it's affecting their business.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's something in the second half
Okay, we
we'll
can
want
get.
to dig into, and like what that programming looks like and how we define that. So, but before we jump into that, and before our break, just if you could talk to all the entrepreneurs out there and tell them like the number one thing, the number one lesson that you learned that was most impactful for you, that they should be applying to their business today. I know it's pretty general because we've got a variety of folks out there, but just in terms of that entrepreneurial side of things, what do you feel like that would be?
For me, it kind of goes back to the 16-year-old self question, to be
Okay.
honest.
All right.
And that
All
is
right.
because applying that to your business,
Yeah.
find out what it is that you need and go get the help that you need in it,
Mm,
whatever that is. Because so many times, especially newer entrepreneurs, I think they do this more, but sometimes older ones too. But we
yeah.
get stuck in this. Well, I can do it all. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to do everything myself,
Yeah.
and we don't. And I'm speaking from experience. We don't get the help that we need, that's going to move us forward faster.
Yeah.
And we just think that we can do it all, and it's a terrible trap, really, because
Hmm.
what it ends up doing is it ends up making us not doing what we're really gifted at
Yeah.
on the level that we could be if we
Hmm.
didn't have all these other things we were trying to do.
Yeah. No, that's golden. That's golden. And I think part of that is being vulnerable enough to 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 be able to recognize that, yeah, you're not great at everything. You're just
Yeah.
and you might think that you can do better at than somebody else, but that's only because maybe haven't communicated what you're looking for to the other person clearly enough, So it's like, let's analyze that deeper, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
cool. That's cool.
absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back. We're going to dig into what this programming stuff is, how it affects us, and things that we can do to start identifying our programming and taking action to correct the programming or find the programming that serves us better and implement that, right? Maybe that's a better way of saying it. All right. Well, we'll be right back. Have you been suffering from chronic pain, disease, or sleep disorders? Did you know that 75 to 90% of disease is caused by inflammation in the body? The sad truth is, most doctors just treat symptoms rather than finding and fixing root causes of inflammation. If you want to fix your health problems, then finding and fixing the cause of the inflammation is a must. It's time to demand this for your health care and start living life to its fullest again. Book a discovery appointment with the Functional Health Team founder, Dr. Flora, to get your answers ASAP at www.functionalhealthteam.com. All right, and we're back. And in case you missed it and you're just now tuning in that first half, Kimberly was sharing some of her entrepreneurial journey and the golden nuggets that she learned along the way. And you definitely need to go back and listen in and pay close attention, because there were some things in there that I think could help most people, if not everybody, listening to this show. So thank you so much, Kimberly, for being open and sharing some of your journey. So digging into, we talked about NLP, and we talked a little bit about what NLP is, right? NeuroLinguistic Programming. But we've talked about that. We've used that word programming quite a few times. So what is that programming exactly? Like, where does it lay, or where is it in our brain, I guess, or maybe even in our consciousness? Like, where is it at?
Well, that's a deep question.
Deep in there. Yeah.
It is. So it happens through language. It happens through, we have filters up here that, you've heard, I'm sure, 50,000 thoughts a day that come into, our brains every single day. Well, as those go through our brain, they go through a filter. The filter is those are our experiences, our memories, our literally everything, our beliefs, our family's beliefs. It goes through all that. And then out of that is where our behaviors and our responses come from. So we delete, distort, generalize information because of the filters. So to make it fit into our own map of the world. So it's all in here, but it's all about more language than anything, because I mentioned that earlier, we're programming constantly. We've been programmed up to this point. For a lot of people, it hasn't been intentional. It's been, you've been programmed to do the things that you don't want, not the things that you do want. So that's a big, huge piece of it. But when those filters happen, we all do it. It's there. It's just part of our makeup. But that's how we respond to things. So that, that fear thing that happened, maybe you fell down the stairs when you were, a year old, and your parents went, and then all of a sudden you saw that.
Yeah.
And then, maybe later you developed a fear of heights, or, something else, but it was out of every time you came up to, maybe get up on a slide or, swing high up or whatever. I'm just going through different made up scenarios. You went through that filter of falling down first, and then maybe something else happened that kind of acknowledged that or confirmed, oh yeah, fear is bad or heights are bad.
Yeah.
And then you continue to do it. But then as we end up being adults, it's so deep seated in there, you don't even realize you're doing it. And so then it ends up applying to other areas in our businesses and other things and you're not even aware that it's happening. And you have no idea why or what started it.
So it's kind of like the difference in parenting, where kid falls down, scrapes their knee. One parent might, oh my gosh, and make a big deal out of it. And are you okay? And maybe even show some fear on their face, and versus the other side where it's kind of like, well, just rub some dirt on it, get back out there and play.
True, but you may end up with the program of people that love me don't really care.
All right. Well, that's fair too. So there's got to be some sort of balance. You're saying there's somewhere. All right. Fair enough. And as a parent, because I think we kind of hit upon that a little bit, with your young parents. Would you say that even that reaction, if we're just thinking about our impact as parents, should that reaction maybe vary a little bit based on the individual kid and how they interpret some things, if you can see that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no secret that your kids, I mean, I have 3 kids, they're all different personalities.
Yeah.
And I know, one needs a little bit more sternness. And there's another one that, you could say things really, softly, quietly, and they get it right away, and it's not, big deal. So I think, you have to take those, be intuitive about your kids and how you talk with them, but also just be aware of what language you're using with your kids, because it impacts them. Everything we say impacts them. We can't control it all. Everybody's going to have problems. None of us are perfect. So
right. Yeah. So that language that we use, and you said that you had learned some different ways of using language that impacts our kids, but how does it impact us as adults?
Oh, that's huge. You hit on this a little bit earlier about learning. What did you, because I like to, when we have things that happen in our businesses or in our lives, a big, huge key is to twist it or to turn it into, what did you learn? Whatever that is, what did you learn from that experience? Because when we learn from it, we get to move on.
Yeah.
We get to move on. And that's huge. And that's easy to incorporate into your life. So, if you're frustrated with something or something's not going right, okay, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
That's a big mindset shift. Just by itself. It's easy to do. It's also easy not to do. But that puts your brain focusing on the positive things. I'm big on questions too, and using those to focus.
Yeah. So what kinds of questions, though?
So, I'll give you an example. I like using this example because I think it probably resonates with a lot of people, especially after going through the pandemic. But let's say you're trying to lose weight. It's a lot of people put on weight.
I feel attacked right now.
But if we're trying to lose weight, and then some of the we ask ourselves questions all the time. Just like, we're programming ourselves. A lot of it has to do with the questions that we're asking ourselves. So if we ask ourselves, why did I gain 5 pounds? Why am I not losing weight? It immediately goes to the negative things. Well, you didn't lose weight because you ate that bag of potato chips. You didn't go to the gym this morning. You didn't, you can name off a bazillion things that you didn't do right. And that's what comes into focus. And it goes into that reticular activating system, the part of your brain that focuses on things. So instead of asking why, ask what or how. What what kind of foods can I put in my body today that's going to align with my health goals? How can I be even more healthier? And that's the easiest example, I think, because a lot of people can resonate with it. But also, it's easy to apply to any area. So if we're asking, why didn't I get that sale, or why didn't I do this, in my business, asking those what or how questions instead can get you a lot further. And it's really powerful. Really, really powerful. If you can do it before you go to bed, that's even more powerful, because your subconscious mind will think about it, and give you those answers when you wake up. And you don't have to do the work. It does it for you.
Okay. So are there like some specific questions that you recommend in general for people to kind of ask themselves before going to bed, or maybe journaling on, or something like that?
I do. I actually use I have a stack, and I write questions all the time based on what is it that I need to improve. So what area do I want to improve? And then I write a question on that problem. Okay. So one of the questions that I always ask every single day that I've never changed is, what can I be grateful for right now?
Yeah. How do you think that helps people?
Yeah.
On a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
How, what impact would that have on, you think, the most people's lives if they ask that question every day?
Oh gosh. I mean, with any area, it helps your brain focus on what's working. When we focus on what's working and what's good in our lives, we see more good. I mean, it's very simple. When we focus on the negative, we look for it. And we naturally do that. Like we naturally go to the negative. I don't know why this is, but that's what we do. We really have to work on focusing our minds on gratefulness and being thankful. Because when we look for those things in our lives, whatever it is, if you're having trouble in your marriage, I work with a lot of people, relationships also, business owners, but business owners have relationship problems a lot of times because they're so focused. Whatever, if it's in a relationship, what can you be grateful for in that relationship? What about that person? What do you like? Because when you're constantly, he's doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, it just brings out more of that.
Okay. Now, we talked a little bit about how to identify some of these things that might be holding us back in our lives, maybe shifting slightly, but still kind of with this idea of questions. What are some ways that we can use questions to start identifying some of the obstacles that might be keeping us from focusing on what's working or taking action on the things that we want to take action on?
So I want to give you a lot of times people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
They think they do.
Okay.
I struggle with procrastination. Or, you name the thing, whatever, inferiority complex, or imposter syndrome. That's the one.
Yes, that's a very popular one. Yes, imposter syndrome is very popular these days.
Yes, it is. And it's a very surface level thing. I don't even understand it totally, to be honest, like what people mean by that, because there's always a deeper something deeper beneath it. It's very, very surface level. So asking yourself, what is the one area in my life, or what is the one problem that if I change that problem or got rid of it completely, what area would impact my life all areas the most, that if I solve that problem, what is that problem? Because when we can focus on what that one thing is, then we can start to dig in even deeper. And when I ask people to dig in even deeper, one of the questions that I ask is, how is that a problem? So let's say it's consistency. How is consistency a problem? And you might say, well, I'm not getting the business that I want, or I'm not making the sales calls that I want. Well, how is that a problem? And you've heard this done with why. I'm probably,
Yeah.
Same thing, just layering. How is that a problem? Until you get to the deeper problem. And then that's the one you want to focus on.
Okay.
So sometimes, I'll give you an example. I worked with a lady she wanted to scale her business. 3 or 4 years of wanting to scale, not taking any action on it. And she had imposter syndrome. But that was what she said she thought she had. And we did this process of asking, how is this a problem, and really digging in. And it ended up being trust. Trust was her issue. She didn't trust herself to make good decisions. She didn't trust other people. And if you're trying to build a big business, I mean, trust is like something you have to have. So now I identify people that maybe don't want to let things go, that want to do too many things. A lot of times that's a trust issue. And, they may not know how to fix that. But that's a example of something that I see a lot, is trust. And sometimes people have multiple things going on why, but that was the big one for her, was trust.
So using those questions to dig in deeper, how is that a problem? Why is that a problem? And just trying to get into, okay, what are the deeper levels?
Yeah.
Now, what are the challenges for somebody who's doing that on their own without somebody guiding them through it?
So, one, ask how, not why. So make sure you're asking yourself how and not why, so you're not going down a negative trail. You have to set aside time. So if you're doing this on your own, you have to set aside some time, block out a day or half a day, couple hours, something, to actually sit down, have completely no distractions around, no phone, no nothing, so that you can focus.
Okay.
Because I think that's probably the biggest struggle for most people, is just taking the time to do it.
Yeah.
But it's hugely valuable. I mean, you can do this. Just grab a journal, grab a pen and paper, and start digging in. And it can go quick. You may not need a whole day. But if you haven't done this before, if you've never done it, you might want to take a whole day. You might need to go, get a hotel room somewhere just so that you can be alone and by yourself.
Yeah. All right. So once somebody starts to identify some of those deeper issues, let's say trust, what can they do to start reprogramming?
So you can go back to questions. So how can I incorporate trust into my life even more? What's the one thing I can do that's going to help me trust people more? Like just asking yourself those questions. I talk a lot about getting to the root cause of it. So finding out, and this is part of the process that I do with people, is finding out what caused it. And they can do that on their own, just asking yourself, like, what's the root cause of the trust? A lot of times people know. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're thinking of the most recent trust event, but a lot of times it goes way far back. So asking yourself that question, what's the event that's caused this?
Mm-hmm.
And then what did I learn from that event? So going back to the learning.
So how does your 4-hour methodology, how does that kind of shortcut this for people?
Good question. I'm good at finding problems, for one.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm trained to look for people's even their eye patterns, their language, things that they're not aware of, that I can hear. I mean, I have very specific questions that I ask them within the 4 hours that leads me to those events, so that we can connect the dots. What I do is I bring the things that are smashed down in our subconscious, I bring it up here. And then when you're aware of what the problem is, it's a lot easier to fix it. That's why we don't ever think about it. We don't ever take the time to think about what is causing this problem, and we don't fix it. So my 4 hours very targeted to do that, to find the problem, find what caused it, and then we fix it or reframe it. It's really a reframing, and that's the learning part.
Now, if it's a compacted amount of time and they're dealing with some of those deeper issues, do people ever find it to be overwhelming, or how do you help people through that?
I think that the biggest thing that people are reluctant with me is that, in my process, is the fact that they haven't done it before. This process is different than anything they've ever experienced, period. And so that's the different part of it. I recently worked with a contracting company, and I did this 4 hour with a whole group, 12 guys, sales guys. They knock on doors, and all at the same time. And one of the things that they said was that I made something really hard comfortable.
Okay.
So they were very nervous.
Yeah.
But I wish I could give you this is something that anybody could do on their own, but I think some of it's just that's my gift, is I make people feel really, really comfortable, and it's not a big deal. And by the end of it, they're energized and they're ready to go.
Yeah. Well, it's like what I do as a business coach, right? Helping people with their sales and marketing strategies and all that stuff. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, you could probably do some of this stuff on your own, but you're probably not going to get as good of results, and it's probably going to take you a lot longer.
Yeah. So
if you want better results and you want it faster, that's my argument.
Yeah.
I've got certain ways of doing it that just make it easier, and you can have that vision faster. So I totally hear you. So, well, if people want to know more about you and get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. Well, you can connect with me on social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the places. I've got a website, KimberlyLebbing.com, and I've got, I've got downloads on there that you can, check out my process. I've got a download about how I helped a business owner go from zero business to over $1 million in a year. So download that, and it unveils my whole process.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for being on the show. And again, it's KimberlyLebbing.com. So you can go check more of her information out. And if you are struggling with your business and you want to take it to the next level, we're here to help. We know some great folks like Kimberly for some mindset stuff, and we also help out with the strategic planning, marketing, sales, all that stuff to help you grow as well. So thanks again, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. But now is the time to put what we talked about into practice. Remember, your family, employees, and community are depending on you to rise up and win. The great news is you're not alone. You're part of a resurgence of entrepreneurs who are ready to take their business, life, and impact to the next level, and we're going to do it together. This show is powered by Time for Success, where we help business owners every day who want more freedom and wealth while building a legacy of positive impact. Please follow Time for Success on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for more helpful strategies and tools for creating the business and life of your dreams.